Have you ever wondered if you are living at this moment as your ideal self? Welcome to the Matadoras podcast with Deana and Lizzie, and we are so happy that you joined us today. Today, we will talk about some inspirational and practical advice on becoming the best version of yourself. And this is something that Deana has been working on even with her health and wellness group that she has currently going. And yeah, I'm so excited to hear all that she has to share. So Deana, please share.
Okay, thank you, Lizzie. Hey, so I just wanted to have a talk with all you ladies out there. I think this is something that was an epiphany for me. I had an experience a couple weeks ago that really made me start to think. And, lately I've been trying to look at thought work for myself. And there's a weight loss class that I do once a week for the ladies in there. And yes, we talk about nutrition, and yes, we talk about weight loss, and yes, we talk about longevity and, supplementation. But lately I've been really understanding that thought work is so important for your overall wellness. And thought work affects your physical wellness as well as your mental wellness and your emotional wellness. And those all tie in together for your health. So what made me think of this is I was on my way to the gym, I don't know, probably about a month or two ago. And I'm not a person that has always had the best self-esteem. I didn't have the best childhood, and you know, friends, little kids pushed me down a lot, bullied, little kid bullying type things, and called me ugly all the time. And that affected me, and obviously I'm much better now, but just saying that even those things as a child can really affect you. And so I've always kind of struggled with self-worth and those types of things. And so I was headed to the gym, and I just made a detour. I just caved into my lower nature, I'm going to call it, lower self. And I went to McDonald's and I just sat there and ate a Big Mac. I ate a Big Mac and fries and a Coke because I had not had that in a while. And I was like, I want it. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, to be honest with you. I really don't. However, I think that if you have an issue with using food to numb feelings or to feel better emotionally, I think it can lead into a problem. And I tend to do that. I can use those things when I'm not feeling that great. And at this point, I was just going through a season in life where I wasn't feeling that great about me or anything else. And so I just went to McDonald's and numbed my feelings. And while I'm sitting there enjoying this meal, I started asking myself, this is a random question, you guys, but I asked myself, if I had $1 million in the bank right now, would I feel more valuable? Not because money makes someone valuable or lack of money makes somebody not valuable at all, but I needed something concrete to sort of connect that feeling to. And I asked myself, would I be sitting here eating this really bad food? And would I eat this really bad food on a regular basis, more than I should? And I had to honestly answer no. If I had $1 million in the bank, somehow I would feel like there was a bigger purpose and that I needed to take better care of myself in order to take care of that, and in order to take care of whatever that money was in there for, whatever it represented, whether it be the family or whether it be, we had assets, whatever it would be, I would need to be healthy. And I started really asking myself, why would just having a dollar amount in the bank make me feel more valuable than I am right now? Right? Because we all have inherent value. Every one of us as a human being is valuable just because we're human. And I truly believe that with my whole heart. Whether you are the youngest of the young or the oldest of the old, you have value inherently as a human being. But what helps us to feel more valuable, more worthy? What helps our self-worth? And I had to really start thinking about that. And I did look up self-worth, and it said basically becoming the person that you want to become. And it's made up of your goals, dreams, and ambitions. So I would really call this your ideal self, the person that you ideally can picture yourself becoming. And some people, some of you listening out there may already be living in your ideal self, and some of you may not. And so I really want to talk to you, to those of you that don't feel that you are living up to your ideal self or don't even know what I'm talking about. Like, what is your ideal self? So I want to kind of talk about that. So let's talk about the ideal self. The ideal self is the person that you would be if you really put into practice those things that make you feel valuable. And the opposite of that would be your lower self or your lower nature. Your lower self would be the person that you would be if you really didn't put any effort or give any value to who you were as a person. You just maybe caved into your habits, maybe caved into your urges. You just kind of lived according to your lower nature, maybe no self-control, those kinds of things. So you've got your ideal self, and then you've got your lower nature self. And then, thirdly, you have your current self. Who are you today? I was reading a book the other day, and the author was saying low self-esteem can be calculated by the gap between your ideal self and your lower nature self. How big is that gap? If that gap is very wide, you're very likely suffering from not the best self-worth or self-esteem. So what do we do about that? Well, this is what I did. I made a list. I started off making a list of what does my ideal self look like? If I were to become the best version of Deana, what would that version look like? And it was so exciting because honestly, that's the first time I'd given this any thought. But I got excited writing this list down and just what would I look like? What would I do? How would my habits change? What things would I give into? What things would I not give into? What things would I control? What things would I, and I just listed them. And here's a partial list just to give you an example. Ideal self of Deana would be, I would be eating more healthy. I wouldn't just give in to that lower nature craving and, well, I just want it, I'm going to have it. I would take better care of my body. I would work out. I would actually work harder at the things that make me feel confident, which that could be Lizzie and mine's business, and monetizing our business and moving forward. I would also give more. I would be more kind, and I would be more able to and willing to hold in negative emotions and be kind and respectful to people instead of sometimes just giving in to whatever mood I'm having. This is not a description of perfection, okay? I want to be very clear. We do not ever want to equate our ideal self with perfection because, ladies, we are not perfect and we never will be. So that's another topic altogether that I want to talk about in thought work, because I think sometimes we misalign our ideal self with perfection. Ideal self is a realistic expectation of things that you could do to become the version of yourself that you probably do have in your subconscious mind buried, but maybe you're not there. So I listed out all the things that I would do, my ideal self would do. And then I listed the things that my lower nature tends to do and wants to do. And things like being lazy, procrastinating, binging on crap, whether that be food, whether that be social media, whether that be any kind of entertainment, being too self-indulgent and not enough self-control, being undisciplined. Those are some things that I really see as my lower self, which is always there beckoning me, it seems like, especially if I go through a time when I'm emotional or struggling or just feeling lousy. It seems like my lower nature comes in and wants me to indulge those feelings and wants me to behave as if I am that person. And then I wanted to look at my current self. Where am I now? How big is this gap? What does my current self do? And definitely my current self, which is probably common, was a very mixed bag of my ideal self and my lower nature self. So I decided to go on a quest to change that and to really get pumped up about the fact that I could actually be more of my ideal self. And here's the interesting thing that I found out. The more that you strive to do some of those things on your ideal self list, and not, again, not in perfection and not beating yourself up for not doing it, just some little gentle moves toward your ideal self, the more I felt confident, the more I felt valuable, the more I felt proud of myself. And I didn't even make everything work exactly how I wanted to make it work. But just moving toward that goal of enhancing my ideal self gave me a sense of pride. And that pride gave me a sense of self-worth. So I think that sometimes we do good things for ourselves for the wrong reasons, because we are looking at it as, you never work out. Oh, you look in the mirror and you hate what you see. And you're like, yeah, well, hello, that's because you ate Lay's potato chips yesterday and you watched Netflix and you could have gone to the gym and you didn't again. And we go from the negative and we just beat ourselves up, right? So what does that do? You beat yourself up. You feel like crap. You feel like you are that lower self. That is who you are. Matter of fact, you're identifying with her. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about two different people here, right? You have your ideal self and you have your lower nature self. Which one are you identifying with? If you're identifying with your lower self, then you will start to take on that identity. You will start to do the things that the lower self does and probably not even realize it. And so I just started making that shift toward, this is exciting and this is positive. This is not me beating myself up. This is me looking at, I could be this person if I wanted to. I just have to start identifying what kinds of things will get me to be that person. And it may not even be working out and eating better. That's just my list. Your list could be completely different. What makes you feel more valuable as a human? Write these down. What makes you feel more valuable as a human? What makes you feel proud of yourself? List some actions. List some things that you even do now that make you feel proud of yourself. What are some things in your life that you've accomplished? And what are some things in your life that make you feel that you value and respect who you are as a person? And write those things down. It might be really different than just setting goals and, first of the year, you want to just start going to the gym and start doing this and start doing that. This is different. This is actually becoming something and being excited about it. And I hope that it affects you the same way that it affected me, because I realize that I am actually two different people. I am that lower nature self. I can be. And I am my ideal self. I can be. But I was identifying more with that lower self. And the more I identified with her, the more I would act out those behaviors. And the more I acted out those behaviors, the more I felt like garbage and would just do more of those behaviors. And so it was like this vicious cycle trap of, this is who I am anyway. This is who I've always been. This is what I look like. This is what I'll always look like. These are the habits I have. This is just who I am. I'll never change. And I stopped that rhetoric and thought, if I want to be this other version of myself, I can. But I need to make very reasonable and specific mini goals. Okay. Sometimes we make goals that are so ridiculous and unreasonable, and then we beat ourselves up for failing. Well, what does failing do? It's going to take you right back to that lower nature. It's going to take you right back to that girl that always fails, right? Getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning when you have 3 kids and you have a full-time job and you get home at 6:30 every night, absolutely exhausted, and start homework and dinner and everything else. And now you're saying you're going to get up at 5 a.m. every day and go to the gym is completely unrealistic. I don't know anybody that could pull that off. But spending 15 to 20 minutes a day doing something that makes you feel like you're maybe getting a small workout, or you're, just getting on the treadmill with your favorite TV show. Your husband's in bed, you're on the treadmill for 20 minutes. That's reasonable. That's realistic. And it's the tiny wins that are going to make you feel proud of yourself, even if they're not doing a whole lot right now. The tiny wins in your life will make you feel proud of yourself. And that pride in you is feeding that ideal self. It's feeding that confidence. And that will also take you to other actions and activities that make you feel proud of yourself. Because just like the lower nature habits breed more lower nature habits, the ideal self habits breed more ideal self habits, because you start to feel more valuable. And I'm telling you, there's something about feeling valuable that causes us to take better care of ourselves as human beings. You need to feel more valuable. And I honestly feel like that's probably half the reason that I have failed at many of the things that I have done, because I just deep down inside didn't feel valuable enough to treat myself like I had a lot of worth. And I bet if you've come out of a narcissistic relationship or toxic relationship, that has been stolen from you. And it needs to come back. And, even finding your ideal self after one of those relationships might feel like you're actually just finding yourself, because you've lost yourself by being the person that person wanted you to be, and by listening to who they claimed that you were and who they claimed that you became, or who you were with them. And, we tend to lose our way. So I hope that you're kind to yourself, and I hope that this excites you, and that you start to take those tiny wins and you start to feed that soul of your ideal self and celebrate the wins. And if you have a failure or a loss, it's okay. It's okay, because it should not define your ideal self. Your ideal self is human. So I hope that helps somebody out there today. It really helped me. And Lizzie, just want to give you a chance to comment, or if you had anything else to say about that.
Oh, I loved it. I love the little tiny wins. I think sometimes we don't give ourselves the celebrations over tiny wins, because they are actually big wins in their own way. You were sitting here talking about the ideal self versus the lower nature, natural self. I thought too, when you are under stress, I think we just sometimes organically end up there. I think this is why too, journaling your desires and what your goals are and may help some of that. I 100% agreed. When I had 4 children, young children, and I worked full time and had to go to school as well for my credential as a teacher, it wasn't realistic to go to the gym and spend an hour, because you have to talk about getting ready. It's looking for those little things in your home that would be realistic, especially for those that have young children. Definitely will help them with those little wins. Those tiny wins. I love that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those tiny wins, you need to celebrate them as big wins.
Yeah.
I know people that will literally beat themselves up over the tiniest failure and then dismiss the tiniest win like it doesn't even matter. And that's someone who's living in their lower nature. But what are some things? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I totally get this, because I think each person can kind of relate. We could have so many compliments on something, and it could take that one negative that'll just put us down in the pit, even though we may have had 10 other compliments throughout the day.
Exactly.
So it's the same thing. it's that pull, the inner pull in us to hyper focus on the negative. It's a battle. My mom was right. She always said it's a battle of the mind. It really is.
It really is. And what
Mm-hmm.
are some things that you do that make you feel more valuable or increase your self-worth?
Well, one thing I've been doing, I think, because one of my ideal self is to be financially secure. Finances and spending money well, or being healthy with my spending, is my ideal self. And so right now, I think the tiny win that I have is that I hired a financial coach that walks beside me to help me make some of these tiny wins and make the goals to make these tiny wins. Now, not necessarily do we always hire someone to help us with something. This just happens to be a deep passion of mine. So I just like people that have huge weight loss. They may hire that trainer that can help them in the gym. I have someone who helps me with my finances. So that's one, definitely.
And even though you hired her to help you, don't you still feel proud of yourself for following through with what she gives you?
yes, I do. Yeah.
Right. You still
Yeah, I
get the
really
win.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by doing that, my long-term goal, because like you talked, the monetization for the Matadoras and just how we've been really growing, but it's also our desire is also to give more, to help
Mhm.
others in need, because
Yes.
you can't be in poverty. You can't have a poverty mindset and not be able to help other people. It just does not work.
Right.
And so I really think people think, well, you have to be a doctor or a lawyer. No, you just have to have good spending habits and have a good, healthy mindset. Anybody who knows me, anybody that works with me, anybody that's close to me, my biggest probably thing that gets me into my lower self is I love to buy clothes. I am a clothes hound. If I could overindulge, it's spending money on clothes and overspending on eating out, because I love doing those two things. Worst thing to do on a budget. Worst thing to do to be financially healthy. And how can I give if I keep living in that cycle and not being careful with how I spend it? Does not mean I can't get my nice things. Does
Right.
not mean that I can't go out to eat. But yeah, and
But
when I
it's
do follow it, it is my tiny wins. Absolutely.
yeah. So, I think it's like binging, like
Yeah.
if you binge eat or you binge spend or
Mm-hmm.
you binge watch garbage or whatever, it's a lack of restraint. And I
Yeah.
think it's a lack of self-control. And those for me, and I think probably most people would agree, make me feel crappy. At the
Yeah.
time they feel good. And, I think sometimes I'll even want to buy clothes when I do feel out of shape and overweight. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to go buy clothes to make myself feel better. But like you said, if it gets into that binge state where it's out of your budget and you now are having to pay for that, it makes you feel like in your lower nature, your lower self. It
Yeah.
makes you feel like a fail versus a win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Even if your life is crazy, because Deana and I both understand having to work full time and having a young family, and it even gets harder when you get older. You think, oh, when I get older, my kids get older, it just looks a little different. But we're still kind of stuck in that cycle of crazy life, right? But I forgot where I was going to go. Have you ever done that? Like I had something
Oh,
really good I was going to say,
yes.
and all of a sudden it just went bloop right out my brain.
All the
But
time.
I know exactly what I was going to say. So it's even if you just start with one thing of your ideal self, like you were saying, just getting on that treadmill for 20 minutes, or if you don't have a treadmill, there's so many things online that you can do. Some of us, it's really a struggle, but just picking that one thing and work on that, and not maybe three or four things of your ideal self, but have those still in the front and
Yep.
center, that is your ideal self, may be more manageable for those busy, crazy, hectic lives.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. Start with one thing because you're right.
Yes.
One thing can make you feel so much better and give you so much value that it will literally bleed over into your own value and self-worth and then make you want to do more. I know that for instance, I've always had such a bad relationship with food since as long as I can remember. I grew up, poor, but my parents were just they were very, They're in this very religious mindset that the world was going to end and we were all going to starve. Like that's what I heard my whole growing up. The world was going to end and we were all going to starve. And there were big barrels of food all over my house. Very dysfunctional. I get it. They had these terrible fears, but when you're a little kid and that's what you grow up with, you know, it gives you this terrible relationship with food because now you're just waiting to starve all the time. And so not only that, but I'm a foodie. Like I absolutely adore food and wine pairing and just everything you can possibly imagine. I just love it.
And it's always my joy when I come to visit. Anyway, keep going.
Oh yeah, we definitely take full advantage of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, having this dysfunctional relationship with food and trying to, you know, manage a healthy relationship with food and without beating myself up, without going into my, you know, cycle of who cares? It's not going to work anyway. The scale doesn't move. Middle age, scale doesn't move when you're middle aged, right? It doesn't move. You could do all kinds of things and the scale won't move. And I finally was like, you know what? I don't care about the food anymore. The food and I are breaking up because I'm going to just eat food that I enjoy and makes my body feel healthier. I'm still eating what I want, trust me, but I'm modifying certain things. I upped my protein quite a bit, and upped my healthy fat so that my, you know, because we talk about this in my weight loss class, when you up those things, it causes all those great chemicals in your brain and those appetite hormones to calm down, and you don't have these horrible cravings anymore. So I made little tiny things. I'm going to eat what I want, but I'm going to increase the protein and I'm going to decrease the carbs a bit and I'm going to increase the fat. That's all I'm going to do. But I am not going to go around on some stringent diet. I'm done with that. There'll be no more diets. And I'm just going to move my body to where it feels good.
Yeah.
2 very small things. I am not going to the gym every day. I'm not doing anything extreme. I'm just trying to feel good. I want my body to feel good. And I want my emotions and everything else that I'm doing to feel really balanced. And so that's all I'm doing. I'm kind of just scrapping the food thing, making tiny little changes and just moving more. That's it. That's all I'm going to start with. And already I just feel so much better about myself. And I'm not moving mountains. It used to be all or nothing. If I didn't move mountains, I was a loser. And if I moved the biggest mountain ever, then I could be a winner, but that was not sustainable.
And I was about to say, I think a lot of us really battle that. We don't give ourselves grace to just really focus on the small itty bitty steps and then realize they are the tiny wins.
Exactly. And I'll say one more thing. There was this book that I read once, and I think it was called something like 2 Degrees. And it literally was saying that we discredit the small positive changes that we make in our life. But you don't understand, if you were to get in a car and you were to change your direction only 2 degrees either way, you would end up in a completely different place in a matter of time. And so it really made me think that it's those little tiny changes that fuel the bigger changes. And the little 2%, 2% is nothing, right? If you make a 2% change in your life and in your trajectory on what you're doing for yourself, after really thinking through what makes me feel valuable, what makes me feel confident, those things may look very, very different than exercise. After thinking those things through, strive for a little 2% change. And again, if I turned my direction in my car 2% to the right, and I drove for 4 hours, I would end up nowhere near the place that I started out going. And I hope you guys take that home and think about it.
Love that. You know what? If anybody wants to share their ideal self and their tiny wins with us, we would love to hear it because we would love to celebrate them with you. You can reach out to us on Thematadoras.com and we would be able to just hear your stories and celebrate with you. But anything else, Deana? That's really good. I enjoyed that.
Thank you. Nope, that's it. I hope it helps somebody out there today.
I'm sure it will. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us today. And just know that we care deeply about each and every one of you. And we hope you have a fantastic day. Thank you.
Thank you.